This is your coffee break. Hey friends, I am here again this week with author Mya Kay, who has actually, I believe, broken a record recently with what she has written. And so, Mya, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Sarah. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is great. I'm so excited to talk to you. Let's see, you were the first person in history on April 4th, 2017 to drop 3 books on the same day. Can you tell me a little bit about this?
Sure. So I am a young adult author and adult romance author, Christian romance. And I actually had just gotten out of a contract with a former publisher, and I ended up with, finally, which is the big dream for most authors, is to get the big publisher, the New York publisher, and I ended up with a New York publisher. And because of my publisher's connections with the other side of the firm, it's a full-service firm, so they handle different things like consulting and publishing. So because of the relationships that the firm had with a lot of celebrities, what ended up happening after I submitted my novel, my young adult novel, Battling Breland, I got a call and was asked if I was interested in collaborating with one of the reality stars from Love and Hip Hop. And then, months after, finishing that book and working hard on that, I was asked to partner with Andrea Mayberry, the mother of Yaz, who plays Hakeem on Empire, one of the biggest shows on television on Fox. So when that happened, it wasn't intentional that all 3 would come out on the same day, but for those who are not aware, and I'm sure if you're listening and you're a writer or you're already an author, published author, whether you're self-published or not, then you do understand and you know that there are certain dates that books drop in the industry. There are certain bookstores buy their books 6 months out. Mm-hmm. And so it just so happens that we have 2 big dates that we would drop a book, and it will be in April or will be in October. And so they were all completed, before April, obviously, because I got the calls in 2016. And so the date was selected for April 4th. So, there were other authors with my publishing company as well who also came out on the 4th. So again, it wasn't that, we did it on purpose so that I would force a historical moment. That's just the way it took place because we are all authors with the firm, and that was our date. For instance, our next date, if all of the authors with the firm wanted to put out another book this year, it would be October 10th. You know what I mean? So that's just the way it worked out. And we ended up doing some research, and we found out that I was the only person who had ever done something like this.
Congratulations. That is just really, really, really cool. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how did you get into writing initially? Tell me a little bit about your writer journey.
Well, I was at Temple University. I'm from Philadelphia, so I was at Temple University studying journalism. And in my junior year, I was submitting to magazines. So I started early. I didn't want to wait till I was about to graduate to apply for jobs. And I realized that the market was just changing, just like publishing has changed, right? Everything is digital. So magazines were just shifting. I studied magazine journalism at Temple. Just to fast forward, I ended up taking a year off and going to school. After the year break, I went to Arcadia University for grad school, and I got a master's in creative writing. And what happened was, towards the end of the program, I'd taken this class called Writing for Children, and it really just changed, everything for me. That was when I realized this was the genre I wanted to be in, and I really loved it. And I had kind of started this book in that class. Well, at the end of the program, you had a choice of doing a dissertation or creative piece, and I decided to do 60 pages of a book, and it ended up being what today is called A Sacred Love, which was on number 1 in my category, which is African American Christian fiction, for 2 weeks on Amazon.
Congrats.
And so, thank you. Yeah, that came out in December of 2016. So that book, even though it was written, it took the first 60 pages was written in 2009. It didn't come out until 2016. So the writing journey for me really got bigger when my mother was diagnosed with tongue cancer in 2011. And that's when I finished my first young adult novel, which was A Song for Jordan, which is the one that has the movie to it. I shot a film for it in Atlanta. So that was when it was therapeutic for me. I was laid off about 3 weeks before she was diagnosed.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I ended up being her caregiver. And so with all of that time, I said, it's up to me to finish something that I started. And I finished, my first young adult novel during that time. So that's when it really started, full 2010, which is like about full time when it really started. And so it's been about 7 years.
What an incredible story. It sounds like everything just kind of came together for you.
Yeah, it did. And I have received hundreds of rejections for the book that I did. I did the first 60 pages for my grad school project, but then eventually I finished that as well. And so I had received hundreds of rejections. So when it came to the book I finished when my mom was sick, I had gotten a request from my dream agent. I had like a list of agents. It was 10 agents, and she was in my top 5. And she was my dream agent, and she also represented 2 other Philadelphia authors who she was just known for just making great deals for authors, but she ended up declining. A lot of people don't realize this, and for any writers listening, agents have to be able to sell. Agents get rejected. So sometimes they do. Sometimes they will sign you because they believe in you, and then they'll pitch the story to editors, and they still say no. So, it's just one of those things where it's just a very subjective industry. So, yeah.
So you write predominantly now for young adults?
Absolutely.
I don't know if this came out recently, Battle in Berlin, the Clover Chronicles. Yes. So it looks like this is a series. Is that the first book in the series?
It is. It is the very first book in the series, yes.
What's coming up next? Have you started the second book?
I have. Series for me, I'm not sure how old you are, Sarah, but that's what I grew up with. I'm an 80s baby, so we grew up on the Babysitter's Club, and we grew up on, Judy Blume's.
Yep.
And it was just so different for us growing up, and so for me, writing a series is a dream come true. And even to take it a little further back, I know it's kind of like kiddish, but I grew up on like the Berenstain Bears and Minnie Mouse series.
Yeah.
And those were like big deals for me as a kid. Like I didn't even know much about standalone books. I didn't, because I just grew up reading, series. So, for me, it's like a dream come true to be in the same space as, Anne and Martin and, all the people who wrote those series that we loved growing up. So it feels good to be in that space. And it's challenging. This book, I wrote this idea down in 2013 when I was teaching in Korea, and it took 3 years to really get it out because I was like nervous. And when I think about, and I'm sorry, her name escapes me, but the writer of Pretty Little Liars, I know her first name is Sarah. I can't think of her last name. But, she's from Philadelphia, too. And what really, really inspired me was, like, seeing her series on now Freeform, but at the time it was ABC Family, and, seeing how big that young adult series are on television or in film. And because I write screenplays and TV, it really was like a no-brainer for me to now be in this, in this vein and staying in this vein. And that's not to say I'll never write adult romance or Christian romance again, but this is where, my heart is, and this is where my heart lies, because I think our children, unfortunately, our teenagers, it's like the world is babies, and then it skips to adults. We've lost entertainment for kids. We've lost it. They just don't have it, whether it's in books and music and, television. And so I just want to bring back that feeling. I grew up on Family Matters, Step by Step, Mr. Cooper, Boy Meets World, Growing Pains, So unfortunately, our kids don't have that, and I think kids need to be kids. So
I agree. What do you hope that that kids and young adults reading your books will take away from those novels?
Well, the biggest thing that I want them to take away from all of my novels overall is to keep God first. Every one of my novels is not all Christian, but there's a glimmer of my faith that's, woven in through it. The other thing is that every story I write has a solution to a problem I believe teens face. So A Song for Jordan was about a biracial teen girl whose, her white grandparents had paid her black father to stay away. And so that's a big deal. She had to overcome the racial tension. She had to, maybe possibly, I didn't write that in the book. It could be in the second part, but, possibly her grandparents wouldn't talk to her anymore once she developed a relationship. And she was a musician, and she used music to find her father. So I know someone who went through something similar.
Oh
So
my
every book
gosh.
touches on different things, whether it's a single parent home. Battling Breland is so important to me because it touches on lupus. Breland has lupus and she's 15. And I think that so many people don't know about lupus. A lot of people know about cancer, a lot of people know about AIDS, diabetes, but lupus is like a hidden disease that most people don't know about. And there's been a few 20-year-olds in African American community that were big social media influencers that have passed recently in the past year from lupus. So I said, what, this is important to me to shed light on this disease that a lot of people don't seem to know about. So what I want people to take away from this is that, just have awareness of lupus, and also entrepreneurship is very big in this book because each sibling, it's 4 children and their parents, each sibling has their own business.
Tell me a little bit about the entrepreneurship angle. Is that something that you've worked with as well?
Yes. I had my own nail polish line late 2015 to early 2016. It was handmade. The only reason why I stopped is obviously it's handmade. It's a lot of work. Making 100 bottles at a time is a lot of work, and trying to write books. And at the time, I was taking a few MBA courses. So for me, I've always had entrepreneurship in me. I've been working since the age of 12. I had I'm not sure where you're from, Sarah, but you know how in the mall they have carts. You could buy jewelry from one cart and socks from another cart. So I had a sock and sandal cart in one of the popular malls here in Philadelphia. So I've always had the entrepreneurship. And what I really, for me, putting it in the Clover Chronicles was important because they're children of billionaires. But I wanted it to show like they have to work for what they get. It's not just my parents are rich and I have money. And the other thing is, I think schools need to teach our kids entrepreneurship today. I think it should be in the curriculum, and I think that's important. Every child's not going to want to go to college, and I know that sounds like a curse word, but it's true. And every child, I think today entrepreneurship is saving the economy. So that's what I had to put that in the book, and I think it's so important to show, like, children at 14, 15. I know a 14-year-old entrepreneur. I think that should just be something that we really, really stress today, that you have other options. So, yeah, that was important for me, and that is a big deal. I am an entrepreneur.
I love that. And you know what? I wish so much that I would have had classes like that in high school, because you get out of school and you're like, okay, I can read and I can write, but how do I engage with the economy? How do I make a living for myself doing what I love? So I love that you're introducing that at a young age. That is so important. Along those lines, do you feel like being a writer is sort of like being an entrepreneur?
Oh, it is. There's no sort of about it. I mean, I took a leap of faith last February 28th to be exact, and I've been a full-time writer since. And my biggest pet peeve is seeing writers who don't treat their writing like a business. So no, I don't like when you take a selfie and you use that as your headshot. It's like it's a business. You have to really treat this like a business. It's you're your own boss. It's no different from, say, someone who wants to work from home and they may sell products, from home, or someone who my mom sells Avon, so it's no different. You have to take care of the business. And I think that, unfortunately, too many people have that mindset. Like you asked me the question, is it sort of like entrepreneurship? I think that too many writers have the mindset that it's not. And so what you're seeing is a division when it should be a marriage. It is a business. You're supposed to take care of it. You're supposed to wake up when you say, take a nap, go to the gym in the middle of the day, jog your brain a little bit, come back, do whatever it takes. But that's what you have to do. Your website, your marketing, your, resources, collaborations, all of that, it plays a huge role in it. And unfortunately, I think that's why so many writers are kind of hitting bumps in the road, because the book is done, the cover is great, but they didn't even, and they might even have a little marketing plan, but they didn't think of the long-term business. I have a business plan. I have an actual 5-page business plan for my business, and
that's awesome.
With projections and everything, like how much I want to make. Okay, if I sell the books on my own, when I buy them wholesale, how much would I make? How much do I make for my publisher? You have to know these things so that at the end of the year, you're able to balance the sheets. And if you still have a full-time job, great, because I still had to keep one. What I recommend, though, is that you still treat it like a business so that eventually it can become your full-time job. Are
you enjoying it right now? Are you enjoying being a full-time writer?
I am. It was rough The first 3 months were great. I actually had moved to LA for 2 months. So the first 3-4 months of it was great. There was a rough patch 3 or 4 months after that. There was a good 4-month stretch. I didn't really start feeling a little bit better about it again until about October. But that's a part of entrepreneurship, period. You know, whether you're a writer or whatever you do, it's just you're going to have those tough days. So I enjoy it. I enjoy the failing part of it. I enjoy the bad days. You got to take it all in because it's all planting seeds for the good moments.
Yes to that. Yes, you couldn't see me, but I'm just nodding to everything that you're saying.
Oh, no, I get it. Yeah.
And I also hear that you are going to be the host of New York Teen Fashion Week.
Yeah, I just came back.
Oh, you just came back from it? Oh, good.
Yes. So what Sarah's mentioning, because when we originally connected, when my publicist connected with you, it hadn't happened yet.
It hadn't happened yet. Okay.
Yes. New York Teen Fashion Week was April 13th through the 17th. I just got back on Monday afternoon. I'm sorry, it was the 13th through the 16th. It was 4 nights. I got back on the 17th. And it was amazing. I took a lot of photos with a lot of the teens with my book and with my banner behind me for Battling Breland. It was just really refreshing. It was the first one. I was honored to be the host of the first ever New York Teen Fashion Week. There's a lot of firsts going on in my life.
There is. I love this.
So, it's a really big deal. And I used to model when I was young. But more importantly, anytime I can connect with youth, not just to sell a book, but just to make the awareness of the lupus, make the awareness of whatever subject matter I'm touching on in that particular book at that time is so important to me. So I was so happy. I gained so many new friends on social media with the teens that were there. They all have been following me. They all have commented. I comment back. And so that was the most important thing to me because I think a lot of people just forget how important it is for, whatever your industry is, you need to be absorbing everything. Some people will say, well, why did you do fashion and you write books? Well, because my market is teenagers. It doesn't matter what it is. It could have been a medical conference for teens who want to be doctors. That's my market. It was phenomenal. It was really great, and I was just so glad to be a part of it.
Oh my gosh, it sounds like an incredible experience. I'm so glad you did it. And it goes so well with everything else you're doing with inspiring teenagers and encouraging them to be empowered and to really live into their dreams. That's just so incredible what you're doing. What is your favorite part about writing?
I would have to say, I think all writers talk to themselves, right? And then all writers have this, what they call an imagination that just takes you places that you didn't even know you could go. And I think my favorite part of it is the escape. Writing is an escape. It allows you to be another person for a day. And I've heard people say writers are crazy. And I'm sure people call J.K. Rowling crazy, but I'll be a crazy billionaire. It's one of those things where we only understand what it's about. Most creatives I know, however, have those same traits. They talk to themselves. They have, like I know actors who will, they have to play all the characters when they're studying for their role at home because they have to fit into that role. You know what I mean? So they kind of play. Okay, if it's a play and it has 4 main characters, they might play each character so that they can prepare for their role. And so for me, it's just the escape of going into another world, being another person for a moment, because I had to jump into Breland's body. I had to be her for a minute. I had to get into her mind and her thoughts. And I think that's the greatest thing. So you have some men who are married and they say when their wife wears different wigs or different hair, they feel like they're married to a different woman every day. So for me, I feel like when you're a writer, it's like you could be a different person, I guess, for a few months, however long it takes you to write the book. And that's the most beautiful thing. It's the escape. I get to shut off the world, and I get to be into this other world for a couple of months.
I love that. And it's a world that you've made. I love it.
Yep, that I've created.
If so most of the people who listen to this show are people maybe who aren't published writers yet. Maybe they're aspiring writers. Maybe they haven't even started writing yet. Do you have any advice for them?
My number one, and it's so cliche, but the reason why so many writers who are published, we stress that you need to write is because I've met so many writers who say, oh, I want to be a writer, but they haven't written. Or they write and there's like an unfinished product that they've had for 2 years. I met one of the makeup artists who was doing my makeup at the show in New York was saying that she had a book that has been 6 years. And I was like, what's going on? So my biggest thing is to write. But if you are writing and And let me say this. I know some writers would probably be upset at me for saying this. You may not write every day. I know there's this rule to write every day. I would say be creative every day, right? So you may write 2,000 words on Monday, but Tuesday you feel a little stumped. But it doesn't mean you can't be creative. Go paint, write a poem. Maybe you won't write your 70,000 word book, but you might write a poem. Just keep your creative juices flowing, because there have been times that I've done other things. I went into the studio with a Grammy Award winning producer a few weeks ago and wrote a song. And it was so refreshing. It was different because I'm always working on these heavy pieces, and it's like, I need a break from this. So that was fun for me. So that would be my recommendation. Now, not everybody is attached to a Grammy Award-winning producer.
It must be nice.
Right. Well, Philadelphia has a lot of culture to it, so that's what it is. But whoever you are, whatever you can do, however you can find a painter, you can find an artist. So that would be my number two thing. And then lastly, I would say to not be discouraged by the process of writing. I think the process of writing scares a lot of new writers. So if I'm writing, oh my God, I got to write it again. I got to rewrite it. I got to edit it. It sounds so daunting. I got to do all of this just to get one book out. Sometimes when you find out that young adult is 40 to 60,000 words, you get discouraged. So don't be intimidated by the process, because writing 500 words a day at the end of what you got about maybe 7 months, 8 months, you have a book in a year. You know what I mean? So don't overwhelm yourself. Don't look at other authors and try to figure out how they did it. It's great to get advice, but, my biggest thing is to, write, make sure you're writing, be creative, and to not get intimidated by the process of writing.
That is excellent advice. So we are in this ever-changing world, and the political situation is crazy, and I feel like the world's a little bit crazy. How do you see young adult fiction, I guess, interacting with that, and how do you see it kind of changing the world for the better?
Well, here's the thing with everything that's going on politically, everything that's going on in the world in general. I think that all of it ties in. So I love questions like this, because generally when you're a writer, you kind of get the same questions all the time. And there's nothing wrong with that. I love it. So, I'm not saying it's to offend anyone, but they feel like, I can only ask creative questions or writing questions. But I'm like, no, writers, we're people who vote. So ask me about politics. Ask me about how the world is ever changing. For me, I think young adult fiction is just the same way I think entrepreneurship is saving the economy. I think young adult fiction is going to save entertainment, because we don't have anything. Now, I'm not discrediting young adult people who are already out, like young adult authors like, J.K. Rowling, the different. But unfortunately, I'm just going to be honest with you, Sarah, I'm a minority, and I'm very underrepresented on the shelves. When you go into Barnes & Noble right now, you won't see a lot of books with Black characters. That's a problem. That's why I love organizations like We Need Diverse Books. And I love Marley Diaz, who was on Ellen and all those shows, because she collected 1,000 Black girl books. And now she has her own magazine under Elle. And she's 11 years old.
Oh, my gosh.
So, yes.
I love it.
Elle magazine decided to give her own, it's called Marley Mag, because she collected 1,000 Black girl books. She was frustrated. She's from New Jersey, not having enough books with Black characters. See, when I grew up, I'm not going to say I didn't have that, but because I was named after Maya Angelou, I absorbed where I was at. So I absorbed my namesake. I absorbed people. I had teachers who gave me books for Black characters. So it was different for me. I didn't really know that it was going to be this big of a problem. So I think that young adult fiction has a huge role, whether it's politics, entertainment, or any industry. I think it's going to save entertainment the same way, like I said, entrepreneurship is saving the economy. It plays a huge role. I think there are children right now who could write a book about how they feel about the presidency, maybe a picture book, and it could really change, the lives of the people around them. So for me, as an author, as a writer, that's the thing I want people to know. I was just featured in Bronze Magazine last week, and I tell people, well, for the month of April, and I tell people all the time, I am changing the world with words. And whether that be in film format, because I do write film and TV, whether that be in book format or poetry, everything I do has a message. And I probably will, like my next book, the second book in the Clover Chronicle series is touching on sex trafficking. These are the things that we need to discuss. And sometimes people don't want to see it on the news. But someone who loves to read would love to read about it. And sometimes reading it in fiction, it's still heavy, but it makes it a little bit lighter than for a 16-year-old girl to see it on the news, and then now she's scared because she's walking down the street. But maybe if she reads it in a book, you know what I mean, in a fiction way, she's like, oh, wow, okay, I see how I can help. I see the signs of someone with it. So if I'm in school and this girl's acting weird and, you know, I see signs, like, you know, I feel like we can teach so much in fiction, and I hate the myth that fiction doesn't sell. Only nonfiction sells, or only nonfiction is the books that matter. Fiction, you can teach, you can provoke thinking and dialogue, and that's what I do.
Yes, I am such a believer. And maybe this is just because I grew up and I was a reader, but books, especially fiction, books shaped who I was, they shaped how I think, and they shaped the person that I've become today. And I think that you are absolutely right. It's so crucial and it's so important that young adult fiction be representative and be poised to create good change. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Of course. Of course. Thank you.
Mya, this has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. You have so many wonderful insights. I love what you're doing. Can you tell people who are listening today maybe where they can find you online and where they can purchase your books?
Sure. So make sure everything is the same, including my website. You follow me at Writer Mya. It's WRITERMYA. My website is writermya.com. So everything is Writer Mya, social media, website. And you can purchase my book. Now, here's the good thing and the bad thing. We're sold out on Amazon.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I sold out of the Clover Chronicles, and I sold out of Seal, Sex, Entertainment, and Lies, which is the book I wrote with the reality star. He was on Marriage Boot Camp, reality stars, and he was also on Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. So that was sold out. The book Before Empire with Andrea Mayberry Yaz's mother is actually #1 on Amazon in disability and parenting, because it talked about her raising him with ADHD. So, you know, right now you can still get the book from Barnes & Noble. As of today, I want to say, if you're in New York and you're listening, today or tomorrow, but it should be today, when I checked with the store Sunday, they said a few days, you should be able to get all 3 books. I went in there and saw 2 of them. The other one was on the way. All 3 books from Union Square Barnes & Noble. You can get 18 for Walnut if you're in Philadelphia, also at Temple University. They have copies there. So Barnes & Noble. And if they don't have it in your city, please don't be discouraged. There was just a little glitch. We fixed it. But you can still order from Barnes & Noble online and get it shipped to you. And they're pretty fast with shipping. So visit my website or go to Barnes & Noble. Battling Breland will be filled back up, and so will Sex, Entertainment, and Lies with Nico London. So just be it. You know, I know it's frustrating when you want to just get something right away, but that's a good thing when you sell out. And you can also go to IndieBound and Books A Million to purchase all 3 of the books.
Wonderful. Mya, this has just been such a pleasure. Thank you for being on the show.
You as well. Thank you for having me.